Okay, let's start again, shall we? Let's do that again. Hello, you wonderful person. I am the OPG, and today I'm going to be talking about AIDS virus, the artificial intelligence destroys society, and also I'll be talking about superiority complex and self-actualisation. And before I do say that, someone did comment on something I posted regarding that, saying, "Oh, you know, like in this," they're joking, I think, saying, "Oh, but." You say this, but you do a show every day, and it doesn't make any sense. So I hope everyone can gain something from this, because education's important. And what I say to people, people throw things around like, oh, you're projecting, or, you know, you're compensating or overcompensating, which I'll talk about as well. And they don't truly know the meanings because they've not studied any psychology. They're using pop phrases, fad words, and they don't truly understand the meaning. So I hope that someone, and everybody, in fact, can gain something from this today. And once again, these are just my opinions. So I do this for the love of it. And once again, that's explained today. And I just wish more people would read more rather than just bandying about internet phrases. Anyway, the two topics today, as I said, AIDS, the artificial intelligence destroys society, and self-actualisation and superiority complexes. So let's get into it. So this is a new AIDS virus, as I call it. And we're told that AI is actually here to save us, to make life easier, to free us. But I don't think so. Right now, AI is being used to replace workers, to monitor everything we say and do, and to profile our habits, and to concentrate power into the hands of a very small group of people, including Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Sundar Pichai, Jensen Huang, Dario Amodei, and Satya Nadella, and all of their cohorts. And these people who I just mentioned, they're all representatives of leading AI companies. Now, they are government. And what they're offering isn't progress, it's control wearing a lab coat. It's madness for any society to allow a tiny elite to own the tools that shape their thoughts, their labour, their culture, and truth itself. And then act surprised when the inequality that is here at the moment deepens. And they call this a fourth industrial revolution, or that's a term bandied about by the World Economic Forum. Big words, big promises, same old story. Now, think for a moment, right? There's always been the strong and the weak, okay? You can't have one without the other. You can't say that you're strong if you don't have weak to contrast it against, and you can't claim to be weak or call others weak if there's no strong to contrast against. And every civilization wrestles with that tension. When the strong dominate, they hoard resources and they terrorize the rest. I don't think there's much more to it than that. And when the weak dominate, they try to legislate sameness instead of fairness. And neither works. It has to be a combination of the two. You know, we're always looking for either or rather than and. And what's new now is this. The strong are building machines to rule. And the rule is basically for them. And by strong, I mean those who wield the power. Inside all of them, I believe, is the weak boy. Now, look closely at many tech leaders and you see something unsettling. And although, people call them powerful, I don't think it's strength, it's fear. A narrow, anxious masculinity that's trying to freeze the future in their own image. Low empathy, high control, and, any other term you want to apply to it that is kind of, negative. And when men like Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, or Elon Musk talk about shaping the future, there's something that's always missing, and that's community, care, wisdom. It's always optimization, efficiency, sales, and scale. And there's never any meaning or an objective that we're heading towards that benefits all of us anyway. And a society doesn't thrive on apps, algorithms, or social feeds. It thrives on trust, shared values, and human connection. And right now, we're living with the latest from their labs: artificial intelligence, machine learning, our modern Frankenstein. Self-driving cars have already killed people, and not hypothetically, actually. And we didn't ask for these systems, but they're being rolled out anyway. Faster than law, faster than ethics, faster than public consent. And we're told that the machine and what machines do is a miracle. And they're using terms like magic. And they're talking about, we're making machines that are like human beings. And that's where the catch is: like, but not. Systems that are trained to imitate us while quietly monitoring, ranking, and selling us. Yes, I can see there are benefits. AI can help detect cancer And that matters. But where is the same investment in moral intelligence, in social repair, in collective well-being, in planetary conservation? It's absent. Instead, we see systems that absorb our worst biases, racism, sexism, exclusionary, everything else that, that's exclusionary, because they're trained by narrow-minded people in narrow groups with narrow experiences. And these machines, they don't understand. They calculate. They don't care. They classify. And when mistaken statistical prediction for wisdom and binary logic for judgment and probability for truth. And worse, we don't even fully understand why these systems make decisions they do. And that alone should terrify us. Computers are finite machines, classical systems, bounded logic. Human consciousness isn't. We're messy, contradictory, and we also feel we're empathetic. And we live in uncertainty, and that's what drives us, and that gives us the will to want to stay alive. And trying to reduce the human mind to code is like trying to bottle a storm. And between you and me, there's something else going on here. As I keep saying, men can't give birth, so they keep trying to create life. There, I said it again, and I will do again in the future. And the future is looking bleak due to our inaction. But what are we going to do about it? Hello, Jen. Hello, Bat. Long time. Hope you're well, guys. Anyway, listen, I'm going to talk about. No, I don't know. I was going to talk about what I was going to talk about. Self-actualisation and the self-actualisation. Hold on. Where's my notes? Self-actualisation. Oh, and superiority complexes. So I can get into that, and I can talk about the contrast between these two, because they're two contrasting ideas. And I think they're quite important. There's a million things to learn, I know. I'm not saying that they're the most important, but anyway, I'll talk about self-actualisation and superiority complexes, okay? Let's call this a study in contrasts, if you will. So to get to the crux of the matter, there's two contrasting behaviours that seem similar on the surface, but they have very different underlying motivations. And two of psychology's most important ideas about human motivations seem similar on the surface, but they move in completely different direction. And these are Abraham Maslow's. I'm going to say Maslow sometimes because I've been reading lots about him for years, and I always called him Maslow. And now I found out it's Maslow today when I was doing some research to get the pronunciation right. I find it hard to move away from Maslow, so sometimes I'll say one or the other, but I mean the same thing. It turns out it's Maslow, or Maslow, in fact. So Maslow's, and I'll do a kind of combination of the two. Maslow's concept of self-actualization, and I'll be contrasting that with Alfred Adler's superiority complex, and both attempt to explain what drives people to achieve and to grow, yet they describe fundamentally different psychological experiences. Now, one of them represents genuine development and the expression of authentic potential, while the other is essentially a defensive mask which is worn to hide insecurity. Now, understanding the difference between them reveals something crucial about the nature of healthy growth versus compensation, and why two people who appear equally confident and accomplished might be operating from entirely different internal worlds. And by the way, compensation is, in psychology, a strategy whereby one covers up consciously or unconsciously weaknesses, frustrations, desires, or feelings of inadequacy or incompetence in one life area through the gratification or drive towards excellence in another area. And when you hear people saying you're overcompensating for something, this is what they mean. Most people don't actually know the meaning. They also use projection in the same way, but I'm here to talk about something else. So moving on. So Maslow, he developed his theory of self-actualization in the 1940s and 50s as part of the humanistic psychology movement. And he was interested in what made exceptionally healthy, creative and fulfilled people tick. And rather than studying mental illness, he examined people he considered to be functioning at their best, including historical figures like Eleanor Roosevelt, who I'm very fond of, and Albert Einstein, as well as college students, which is an inherent problem in studies because they do so many studies on American college students and then they apply that to the rest of the world. But that's another story. And against other, amongst other people that he encountered who seemed to be living particularly meaningful lives. And from his observations, he's concluded that self-actualization was about becoming more fully yourself, developing your unique talents and interests, not to impress others, but because doing so felt inherently meaningful and right. And he placed this at the top of his famous hierarchy of needs, suggesting that people naturally move towards self-actualization once their more basic needs for safety, belonging and respect are reasonably met. And by the way, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a psychological theory which is often pictured as a pyramid, and it suggests that we humans are motivated by a progression of needs starting with the most basic and moving upwards, and you've got to satisfy the lower rungs before you can properly reach the higher ones, and the highest being self-actualization. So for Maslow, self-actualizing people, they actually share certain qualities. They tended to be spontaneous and natural rather than defensive or calculating, and they could accept themselves and others as they were, flaws included, and they were often deeply absorbed in work or causes that they found meaningful, losing themselves in what they were doing rather than constantly monitoring how they appeared to others. And they had what Maslow called peak experiences, moving through moments of deep meaning and connection, or moments of beauty that felt profoundly significant. And perhaps most importantly, they weren't actually concerned with comparing themselves to others or proving their worth. And their reference point was internal. It was their own sense of what mattered and what felt authentic to who they actually were. Now, Alfred Adler, who was working a few decades earlier in the first half of the 20th century, he developed his concept of the superiority complex from a different starting point. Adler had been part of Freud's inner circle, but broke away to develop his own approach to psychology. He believed that all people are born into a position of helplessness and inferiority, surrounded by bigger, more capable adults. And he argued that much of childhood and psychological development involves striving to overcome these natural feelings of inadequacy. And this striving itself isn't pathological, it's a normal part of human growth. And the problem arises when someone can't develop genuine competence and confidence and instead construct a false sense of superiority to compensate for persistent feelings of inadequacy that they never truly or never properly resolved. And the superiority complex then isn't really about feeling superior at all. It's a defensive cover-up. Deep down, the person feels inadequate, perhaps even worthless, but they can't tolerate these feelings, so they create an exaggerated sense of being better than others, constantly needing to prove and demonstrate the superiority to keep the underlying feelings at bay. And Adler noticed that people with this pattern tend to be boastful, to look down on others, the need to be the centre of attention, and to react with surprising intensity to criticism or perceived slights. And all of this served the function of maintaining the protective illusion of superiority that kept them from having to feel their deep sense of inadequacy. And I've experienced extremely vicious reactions recently when attempting to tell somebody to be more aware of their position and how they're treating people and themselves, only to be told that I'm narcissistic, projecting, gaslighting and envious. So I can vouch for Adler's observations. And this is one of the key reasons why sometimes I get defensive, because I believe that's just a human trait. But I have everything I need. I've got a paid-for property that I live in. I don't pay any rent. And to me, that was what I wanted to have, just a roof over my head where I don't have to worry about it anymore. I've got that. I think once you've got that in life, typically, all your worries seem to disappear. And it's freehold in Spain. Everything's freehold. It's yours. You can do what you like with it and so on. I've achieved so many things in my life. I've been to many countries, and I've done them all because I wanted to. I can play 5 musical instruments. I can code computers. I can do so much. And once again, for the people who don't understand this, they think, oh, you're just doing that because you feel inadequate, or or you want to be the centre of attention. No, for everyone who knows me and who's been around me long enough, even on social media, I want to pull people in and say, you can achieve what you want. You are the best. You have superpowers, because I know that I've been through that myself, and I've done them all with an open heart and with an honesty. I've done them wanting to be around people like with me, be around people who maybe feel lesser than I am, and tell them, no, we're the same. I do the things out of love. I drew some pictures just recently. They're not the best pictures in the world by far, but I draw them and I don't show them for approval or to say, oh, look how great I am. I'm like, I've drawn some pictures. I can't help myself drawing. Listen, if anyone draws, send your pictures in and so on. And I ask people, and it's about pulling everyone together. I don't mind. My camera's going to go off for 5 seconds. 4, 5. I don't mind what position I am in a community. The trick is knowing your lane and knowing your role. You don't have to stay in your lane, but if you want to improve, you do that without dragging anyone else down. So when you see me always presenting myself, I'm here because I feel strong enough and confident enough because I grew up with love. I had so much fucking love growing up in my house, me and my siblings, that we thought love was natural. And we grew up in a world of racism and hate. But we don't hate anyone for it. There's some trauma, yes, which has made me extremely violent towards anyone who comes towards me with an act of racism. But beyond that, I don't care. I love everybody, and I do it. I don't do it for attention. I don't do these things because I want people just to look at me. I do them because I believe them to be true. If you come from a very solid background, a very solid house of love, and love is all you know, and love is what you understand to drive you and your family and your friends and the world, that's who you become, and that's what I am. So for the people who keep on telling me or want to tell me that I'm seeking attention or I'm doing stuff because, I'm maybe got a superiority complex, I don't believe you. If I heard it of 1 or 2 people in my life, or 3 people, I'd start believing it. But to hear it of one person every 10 years or something like that, that's your issue. It's not my issue. And I'm strong enough to know that it's my superpower. And it sounds like, but you're being defensive in the way that you said that people are defensive who have superiority complexes. It does seem that way, yes, but it isn't so. The more you get to know someone, rather than basing your impression of them on Facebook posts, rather than the sum of their Facebook posts, then the better you understand yourself. So, yes, I've been guilty of superiority complex and also feeling really low and not feeling as good, and feeling like I'm fake sometimes. I'm a sum of everything. But when people point out one of your traits without explaining or telling you, having a conversation about it, I don't see the point of it. Anyway, to get back onto the main subject, the core principles or the core difference between self-actualization and superiority complex comes down to motivation and orientation. Self-actualization is actually about moving forwards, doing something authentic in ourselves, and it's driven by genuine interest and curiosity and the intrinsic satisfaction of expressing, who we really are. For instance, someone pursuing self-actualization in music, they practice because music itself matters to them, because it's a natural expression of something inside them. And this is the reason I do music, not because I want people to see what I've achieved. I realise that's the end goal. I've posted maybe 5, 6 songs that I've made on social media before, because I think, I like this and I want to share it with people. But I also follow those up with live shows saying to people, listen, it doesn't matter what your level of musician is, show people how you express yourself. So you make a song and you put it out, and then people say oh yeah, they like it, they don't like it, it's not that good or whatever, but that's their opinion. But they don't look at the fact that, wow, you've put all of this effort in, you've started with a blank canvas, and you've created something which, wow, and you're pleased with yourself. But that wasn't your goal, to impress people. Your goal was just doing the music for the love of it. And when more people become aware or admit to themselves that they're just being mean to people who do songs they don't like, then they'll start being nicer to people. They'll go, actually, someone's just created a song. It's not a #1 chart topper, but it doesn't matter. That person's put all that effort into making some music. And if you see that person maybe make 3 or 4 songs, you can see how they're improving. You can see the difference, and you can see what they're trying to achieve, if that's your field as well. And we should just be nicer to people about people taking part in endeavours, whatever that endeavour is. So the self-actualisation of the musician making music for the love of it is that exactly, for the love of it. And it's the same for a scientist driven by self-actualization. If they pursue questions because understanding the world's inherently fascinating, then that so be it. It's not mainly towards winning awards or getting a Nobel Prize or to be smarter than their colleagues. The focus is on the thing itself, the work, the interest, the expression, rather than maintaining a certain image of or a certain position amongst a relative to other people. And the superiority complex operates from a completely different place. Everything is comparative and defensive. Achievements exist not as genuine expressions of interest, but as proof of superiority over others. Recognition isn't simply nice to receive, but it demonstrates the desperate need to maintain compensatory structure. The person's attention is constantly on how they measure up, whether they're being seen as impressive enough or whether anyone might be threatening to their position. Now, consider someone who constantly interrupts conversations to showcase their knowledge, who name drops prestigious connections, who becomes visibly upset when a colleague receives praise, who can't genuinely celebrate anyone else's success without immediately pivoting to their own accomplishment. The driving force isn't love. The driving force for those people is just a need to stay on top. And once again, to talk about me, because that's the person I know best, even though I don't truly know myself, I post my friends and their parents on Facebook and everyone who's achieved. I love doing that. That's the way I think. I don't know if I'm self-actualizing. I think it's a lifetime journey anyway, but that's the route I take more so than superiority complex. It's not about me alone. It's about the people that I love and the people that I know. I love everybody. I don't like everybody, but I love everybody. And that's a key difference, you know? And for my negative traits, I won't see them because we have a bias, an inherent bias. But I do listen to people. Soon as someone, and sometimes people might go, "You're too sensitive." And it's, of course, I'm fucking sensitive because I took on board what you said negative about me, and now I have to work through it. If I wasn't bothered by it, then I'm not listening. It's that simple. So I've talked about this phenomenon anyway on several occasions. And recently I've talked about one because, you know, it's really about an experience of me being around someone that doesn't allow me or anybody else to mention anything about recent or past successes without shutting us down or calling us boastful, only then to go on about their recent achievements and how wonderful they're doing. And I think this is a very important dynamic, and some people aren't aware of it. I talk about my achievements, but I make sure, because it's who I am, by the way, and you can run all of my Facebook through an AI and it'll tell you, because I've done it, and it's, I'm not a bad person. I talk about me and my achievements like to 6x. I'll talk about other people and their achievements, and I post what other people have done, and people around the world, and someone playing a guitar, someone doing a somersault, and someone dancing 6 times to my 1. But when someone doesn't like that, or maybe they didn't see all my other posts, they just say, "Oh, who do you think you are? Oh, you're so sure of yourself," and all this. And I'm like, what's that all about? That's something that you've got to resolve in you. You know, for people coming out, "Well, look what I can do, look at me, look at me." I'm like, no, okay, fair enough. You haven't achieved much in your past. You're not achieving anything now. So every minor thing that you do, you want to shout out and tell people like, "Oh, look how great and wonderful I am." And then when someone who's actually achieved something says like, "Oh, by the way, I used to be the second fastest, I had the second fastest Rubik's Cube time in the UK when I was 15, which is a fact." People are like, "Oh, look at you boasting." It's like, no, I had to learn it. It's a skill involved. We had no internet at the time. And I just want to talk about it. But when people put you down, "Oh, you talk about you being able to solve Rubik's Cubes," that's so what? I could. And it was an achievement for me. And I didn't do it to impress anyone. I love puzzles, and that came along. And for the envious people, the superiority complex people, they want to learn it just so that people could know. I had to teach so many people how to do the Rubik's Cube, and I met both. The people who just wanted to learn it because they were fascinated by puzzles, and the people who wanted to learn how to do it because they wanted to just say, "Oh, I'm part of the club, look what I can do." So it's about finding, and you know, the lines that you've defined about people. Give people more time, more space, and give yourself more time and space to look at people as well. Anywho, back to Adler's work. His work, when Adler's work came out, and it was a reaction against psychoanalysis, because he kept some of Freud's ideas about unconscious motivations and the importance of early experience, but rejected others, particularly the emphasis on sexuality. Freud was hooked on sexuality anyway, we all know that. And Adler thought social factors and the drive for significance were more central to understanding people. And Maslow's Maslow's humanistic psychology came later and represented a more radical shift. He felt that both psychoanalysis and behaviorism, the dominant approaches of his time, they focused too much on problems, pathology, and mechanical explanations of behaviour. And humanistic psychologists wanted to understand human potential and what people were capable of at their best. Not just what went wrong with them, but this was a deliberate move away from a deficit-based model of psychology and a move towards one that examined optimal functioning. Now, despite the theoretical differences, these two patterns can easily be confused in real life. Both might involve high achievement, visible confidence, strong opinions, and impressive accomplishments. You can't ignore the fact that you could have two artists, one self-actualizing and one driven by a superior complex, who both produce excellent work, speak authoritatively about their craft, and maintain high standards from the outside. They may look quite similar. The difference lies beneath the surface of their motivations, how they relate to others, and particularly how they handle certain situations that reveal the underlying dynamics. And the key to distinguishing them often shows up in how someone responds to feedback, and that's the feedback to others' success, and to admitting their own mistakes and failures. Self-actualizing, actualizing individuals tend to see challenges and even failures as opportunities to learn and to grow. They're interested in getting better, in understanding more deeply, in developing their capabilities, and a host of other positive, life-affirming and personal growth kind of attitudes. And feedback, even critical feedback, can be valuable information rather than a threat. When colleagues or peers succeed, they can feel genuinely happy for them because someone else's achievements doesn't diminish their own worth, and that's one of the most important things. I love when people achieve stuff. It never diminishes my self-worth because of my confidence. And it's nothing to do with superiority. It's just like, okay, this is me. I can, draw pictures, and I've got the skin really down to looking realistic now, and that's my level, that's my lane. When someone does a better picture, I don't think, oh, grr. I'm like, oh, wow, I'd love to be that good, but I understand that I can't put the time and I can't be that good. I haven't got the dexterity. I can't make the connection, and I'm happy where I am. And it's not a defeatist. Someone goes, oh, you don't try hard enough. You've got no drive. And it's like, no, I've tried and tried and tried, and this is the maximum amount of time and effort I'm putting in, and I'm happy. I'm very comfortable with my position. It's not a case of anything else. It's simply that. And I may be wrong sometimes. Maybe I don't feel strong enough, or maybe I feel too weak. But typically, I kind of gauge things and think, I'm happy with that. I've put a lot of work in, and this is what comes out. And I'm a left-hander anyway, so I'm bloody good at this stuff. Anyway, I think a self-actualizing person also, they know that they don't have to be the smartest or most accomplished person in every situation, because their sense of self isn't dependent on maintaining that position. Now, think of a teacher who genuinely loves teaching, for example, who tries new approaches and isn't devastated when some of those ideas don't work. And that person asks students for feedback and actually considers it. And they light up when students kind of do communicate with them, and they're happy for students who even go beyond them. And that teacher satisfaction comes from the teaching itself, from the relationship with students, from the learning process. They're all engaged together. There's no need to keep students down or to always be the authority who knows everything. And the teacher's sense of worth doesn't depend on maintaining superiority over students. Someone with a superiority complex reacts to the same situations very differently. Criticism, or even gentle constructive criticism, feels threatening and often triggers defensiveness, dismissiveness, or anger. And the success of peers creates anxiety or resentment because it disrupts a necessary sense of being on top. Mistakes and failures can't be easily acknowledged, and this is because they threaten the whole compensatory structure, which I talked about earlier, and instead they might lead to elaborate excuses, blaming others, or simply denying that any failure occurred. Now, an academic operating from a superiority complex might respond from a graduate student's innovative idea, not with encouragement, but with subtle put-downs or an immediate need to demonstrate superior knowledge, unable to occupy even temporarily a position of learning from someone they need to be seen as beneath them. Now, it can happen in both directions, and, they start labeling the self-actualizing person as like arrogant or grandiose and so on. And, people just want to do that because they're not confident about themselves. When you're naturally confident, as I am, then there's nothing to want to do those things about. It's like I was raised by one of the strongest women, the strongest woman I've ever known, my mother. There's no one I've ever met who's stronger than her, and with a kindness of her. I'm so surprised that she had the kindness that she had after what she'd been through. Sometimes I just stop, boom, and I'm like, wow. And I think this woman done that. This woman, my mother, this was her. And to grow up in the embrace of such a woman who tells you that everything's going to be okay, to tell you that you are equal to everyone else. You're not better than them, but they're not better than you. I think that's quite an achievement. So I grew up knowing that I'm the same as everyone. And some people might argue, well, that's why maybe you haven't achieved greatness, because you need to kind of think a little beyond that. Even though you love everyone, it's like, no, you can achieve greatness and know that you're equal to everybody, because that's your pursuit. But the being and the you, there's that equality. It's not about being one-legged or being weak or strong or, whatever. It's about being human, and that's where the equality is. So I grew up with that from a baby, and I practiced that. So that's just who I am. It's just a confidence. When you're told by your parents in your house for 5 years before you leave school that you're the wonderfulest baby in the world, but so are all the other babies, and then you go to school and you grow up with that message and you understand, then you walk around thinking, wow, we're all the same. So if someone over there has more than you, or they're more talkative, or they're being superior or something, you truly know it doesn't matter, because you're all the same. And them having more money doesn't mean anything. Them having a bike doesn't mean anything. That person running faster than you doesn't mean anything. They're all pursuits, and they pursue them and they succeed in them. It's a personal achievement, but it's nothing that makes them better than you. And that's the way I am. So when people tell me shit like, oh, you think you're this, or you put yourself forward because of this, and you do, they say, that's all your ideas. You've created all of that in your own head. Good luck. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not perfect. I fall over in so many other areas. But I'm not talking about today, am I? And when I do, most of you can't handle it anyway. Oh, I killed a man. And you're like, oh my God. And then suddenly people can't deal with you anymore. And it's like, let's talk about the good stuff, yeah? Anyway, I think that I get this reaction sometimes from people, and I can understand why. They think, oh, you're a big head and so on. I've had people approach me just to negatively say, oh, you're so sure of yourself. To which I often reply, yes, because people like you want to see people like me fail. Now, on the flip side of self-actualization, someone with a superiority complex might be quite skilled at presenting themselves as simply confident and accomplished, hiding their defensive motivation behind language without personal growth and authenticity. Social media has probably made this worse, creating platforms where self-promotion is rewarded in ways that blur the line between genuine sharing of meaningful work and compensatory displays, which are designed to prove superiority. And the difference matters, because these patterns lead to very different life experiences and require different approaches if someone wants to change. Adler believed that addressing the superiority complex required helping someone face the underlying feelings of inadequacy that they were defending against. And I believe that too. Rather than keep telling everyone, oh, you've fucking got superiority complex, and just pointing it out, try and help them. Because I think we're all guilty of that. People do this all the time. If you have an issue, they just point it at you. Oh, you're doing that because, or and that's it. And then they're happy with that because it makes them feel good. And then we're all in the same boat. Hate. You know what I mean? And I can hate, and I'm capable, but I just don't hate, I just try not to. I don't bother. I say shit about racists, but I don't hate them. I think they're people with problems, and a lot of them can snap out of it, but the world is what it is. We're all just people after all, and hardcore racists, killers, rapists, murderers, they're going to exist regardless of how I view the world. It's just that I hope I don't come across them. But I'm not going to sit there taking the piss out of people just for the sake of it, especially those people who are good people, because they're close to you. And that's often a sign that they're good people, because I'm not around like hardcore racists. I'm around a hell of a lot of them. But, the people that you're around who are close to you, when you see them having a little meltdown or a breakdown, or they think they're bigger than everyone or something, the fact that they're only that distance away from you means that they're in your circle. And often they're people that could just require a little help and, bring them back onto the level. So we have to be very careful about how we treat people who exhibit these traits, rather than simply writing them off and saying, oh, these people are no good, or just simply pointing out their problems. So we have these distinctions, and they show up everywhere. They show up in workplaces, and they show up in schools, and they show up in the playground, and they show up everywhere. But once again, we have to be good to the people, because, for instance, let me just talk about a friend of mine now. In education, teachers who model genuine engagement with learning, they inspire students differently than those who need to maintain their superior position. And in creative fields, artists' motivation by authentic expression contribute to their communities in ways that differ from those primarily concerned with status and recognition. I have a friend, for instance, his name's Phil Stallam. He's been on the show live and so on, and I believe he's a prime example of self-actualisation, or reaching for that. He's a bit of a hippie. He's also a school teacher. And I think his students are very lucky to have him. His beliefs and how he conducts himself are going to be of benefit to the people he teaches, and I just wanted to get that in somehow today. So there's an interesting paradox that presents itself. I'll be cutting this off shortly, so I didn't think it's going to take so long. I had a lot to spew out. But this paradox that presents itself within genuine self-actualization, in that it often does lead to impressive achievements and recognition, but these are side effects rather than the goal. And the self-actualizing person might win awards, achieve status, become well known, but these external things don't define them or drive their continued work. They're nice, but they're not why the person does what they do. And someone with a superiority complex desperately seeks these external validations as proof of superiority. Yet when they get the satisfaction, it's temporary. The awards and recognitions can't actually fill the void that they're meant to fill, because the real problem isn't a lack of external validation, but unresolved internal feelings of inadequacy. And no amount of achievement can fix that, because achievement isn't actually the problem. Figuring out which pattern you're operating from requires honest self-reflection. Some questions can help illuminate this. I'm just going to do this and then I'm done, okay? When someone in your field succeeds, do you feel genuinely happy for them, or does it create anxiety or resentment? Do you pursue your work because it deeply matters to you, or primarily to prove something to others or yourself? Can you acknowledge mistakes and limitations without your sense of worth collapsing? And that's a very common one for people, which is why they don't give praise. I love when people acknowledge what I've done, and I love acknowledging people. Do you need to be the most impressive person in every situation, or are you comfortable learning from anyone? Are you drawn to opportunities because they genuinely interest you, or mainly because they offer you status and recognition? And these aren't trick questions, and answering them honestly can reveal a lot about underlying motivations. And moving from a compensatory pattern towards genuine self-actualization is possible, but it's not easy. It requires facing the painful feelings that the superiority complex was built to avoid. And this means developing what Adler called the courage to be imperfect. And that's one of the most important things. Don't keep aiming for perfection in everything. You have to accept that you have limitations, and this doesn't make you worthless. It actually involves gradually caring more about your own authentic experience and values, rather than trying to maintain a really high position in other people's eyes. And this kind of transformation is often helped by relationships where you feel accepted despite your imperfections. Social media won't do that for you. I have a lot of people watching me, and I know. I think I know what I am and happy with, and the people closest to me do, and everyone else can just fuck off. It's just like, oh, let me say something about this guy. And it's like, no, you're saying something about you. That's all it is. And once you get to that, once you start understanding that, you understand that it doesn't matter to me. It bothers me sometimes, because I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. Just when I thought we were doing okay, someone's come out and said some fucking bollocks. And it's like, oh, how are we going to change the world when everyone hates each other so much? When everyone's not looking inwards, on occasion, and before looking outwards. We can't, internalize everything, which is why we need people. We have to look out into the void. We have to look out into the world, into our ecosphere, and understand that we are part of everything, rather than saying we're in control of everything. It's like being sat here going like, okay, I'm watching the whole world, and you can look around you, see it as the center of your world, or you can be up there looking down on everyone. Let me just comment on what people are and so on. Someone said to me something the other day like, oh yeah, but don't forget, opinions are just not worth whatever. And I'm like, that you just fucking made an opinion. It's like, you don't understand. By trying to pretend that these things don't exist, or that you're not part of it, we can see you. Your mask has slipped. Do you know what I mean? I say opinions are worth jack shit. I always or tend to, unless I forget, say, well, mine's just an opinion. I'm fully aware of that, but I'm not going to stand there high and mighty pretending that my opinion that I just made about someone opining is more important than their opinions. So, how can I shut this down? Talking about the two together, self-actualization and superior complexes, both of them are patterns to basic human concerns about our worth and significance. and our belonging, of course. And self-actualization represents what happens when more basic psychological needs are met well enough that you can focus on genuine development and genuine expression of yourself. The superiority complex represents an adaptation to needs that weren't adequately met, and an inadequacy that was never properly resolved. And they might sometimes look similar from the outside, but they feel completely different from within and lead to very different qualities of life and relationships. One is sustainable and leads to deeper satisfaction, I'd say, and deeper connections, but over time. And the other is exhausting and isolating. And the fact that it requires constant effort to maintain an inflated self-image is harmful to that person and can never quite make up for the inadequacy that it's covering. And understand this distinction helps clarify not just these specific concepts, but fundamental questions about what healthy psychological development actually looks like. I am the OBG. Yeah, regardless, it's a tool and use it. I always know when you're putting with AI, and I don't think most people can. It doesn't matter, they see you as writing in a particular way, and it's very inclusive. You don't miss a trick, to be honest. I think you get to the point. There's no extra shit in there. I've been writing and talking for years, long time before the AI. So I don't need to use it. I'm smart, but I still use it. Like for instance, I've been writing a topic, and I go when you think about it, when Claude Butler said, and then I think, Claude Butler, who's he? And I go today, very briefly tell me about Claude Butler, and then I'll just put that in as a paragraph. And then I sit there all day just reading through it, and I put it on my headphones, many bits of audio that I need to do, and then I deliver, and that's it. But using the AI really, really doesn't matter. You put it all together so well, and that's an older man's experience. That's a smart man's experience. I do love what you post, but unfortunately, and I say this respectfully, the class that we come from and hang out with more than, we are a little bit more ascended in a sense, if that makes sense. And sometimes you write your fucking Opus Dei and nobody gets it. Do you know what I mean? Oh, apologies. Oh, mate. Hello, Jen. It's good to see you back. Thank you for coming back. I've done the same. I don't know if it was because of the start of the year or whatever. Maybe I think that's what influenced me. But I just made my peace with 3 people that I blocked, and they all accepted me back, and we're getting on exactly from where we left off. And I think if we get into conflict again in the future, we know how to deal with it. And I did miss you, definitely. I've seen your post just recently. I'm like, oh, this Jen. You know what I mean? Straight to the point. You've got a sense of humour, this satire, and also just a really straight kind of approach in amongst all that. But you don't come across as mad serious, or trying to look at me trying to be something special. So yeah, I'm glad you're back anyway, and yeah, let's stay in touch. And what have you been up to in your absence, and what are you doing now? I see you still got some